In a quaint bookstore in the city, Joe, a clerk, engages in playful banter with a customer named Ash. They click instantly and decide to grab coffee together. During their conversation, they explore the idea of finding purpose. This serendipitous encounter marks the beginning of their relationship, which quickly becomes serious. One morning at a cafe, Joe realizes he still doesn't know what Ash does for a living. When he asks, she confides that she has something significant to share, starting with the words, "I love you." Nearby, a man bumps into Hunter, sparking a brief altercation that ends with Hunter taking the man down. Back at their table, Ash begins to reveal that she's from another place, but before she can elaborate, Hunter appears and fatally shoots her. In shock, Joe clings to Ash's lifeless body. Overcome with grief, Joe spends the next 2 weeks in despair, canceling all plans and isolating himself in his apartment. His friend Oliver persistently checks on him, eventually gaining entry one day. When Oliver brings coffee, Joe, too numb to care, drops the cup. Oliver's attempts to console him are rejected, and he leaves. That night, consumed by despair, Joe purchases a gun, intending to end his life. However, the gun malfunctions repeatedly, even after successfully firing it into a sofa. Frustrated and confused, Joe decides to leap out of his window, only to find himself suspended midair, surrounded by shattered glass. Abruptly, he wakes up in his bed. Assuming it was all a dream, he notices the sofa is undamaged and the gun untouched. The apartment's AI alerts him to messages from Ash, causing him to panic and flee the building. Walking down the street, he sees distorted faces in the crowd and glimpses Ash's likeness on billboards. Terrified, he seeks Oliver's advice. Oliver speculates that the messages might be pre-recorded. One video from Ash urges Joe to retrieve a special order from the bookstore. At the bookstore, Joe collects a small book containing a love note from Ash. As he reads it, a sudden, sharp pain clouds his vision, but it passes quickly. Unbeknownst to him, a man tails him, reporting back to Erica, who orders him to recover the book. Back at his apartment, Joe receives a text warning him of impending danger. A man forces his way inside, initiating a violent confrontation. Joe narrowly escapes, but his body seems to move with unnatural precision, disarming and defeating his attacker. Moments later, another adversary appears, and Joe, now exhibiting extraordinary reflexes, overpowers him. Returning to his apartment, Joe is startled to see Ash appear live on his screen. She reveals that she was trapped while dealing with complex hacking issues and explains the truth. Years ago, technology advanced rapidly, leading to the creation of hyper-realistic artificial intelligence. Hunter, a brilliant engineer at Centech, developed a digital universe DU, a simulated world populated by data-driven individuals. While initially intended for testing scenarios, Hunter exploited the DU for unethical experiments. When regulations banned the technology, Hunter concealed it within the DU itself. On the day he shot Ash, he used his admin rights to vanish. Ash, a real woman from the outside world, worked to uncover Hunter's hidden technology. Her efforts led her to Joe, whom she genuinely loves. The book Joe retrieved contains critical data that may help her dismantle Hunter's creation. As Joe watches the images Ash shares during her narration, realization dawns. Oliver, the programmer who worked alongside Hunter, is none other than his long-lost friend. This revelation raises pressing questions. Why had Oliver disappeared? Who had intervened to save Joe from taking his own life? And who was responsible for granting him his mysterious new abilities? While Joe contemplates these mysteries, Erica confronts Hunter in his office. He sits at his desk, toying with a strange, pulsating orb. Erica is visibly tense as she informs him that Joe's actions within the DU are creating ripples too vast to control. The glitches are multiplying, and her team is struggling to patch the errors fast enough. Her proposal is simple but drastic. Isolate the DU from global networks to ensure it can no longer be accessed. Hunter rejects the idea outright, his obsession with the continuous data feed outweighing any potential risks. Erica's frustration boils over. She warns Hunter that the growing instability in the DU risks exposing its existence to the real world. If the DU's true nature were discovered, the consequences could jeopardize countless lives. But Hunter dismisses her concerns, delving instead into an impassioned rant about humanity's destiny and his role in advancing its evolution. Before departing, Erica reminds Hunter of the precarious balance they are walking. Ignoring her warnings, he issues a command: locate the real Ash at all costs. Meanwhile, Oliver receives a brief, scrambled call from Ash. She uses the few seconds she has to implore him for help. Her request is twofold: assist in shutting down the DU and help protect Joe. Before she can provide more details, alarms sound in her apartment, signaling an incoming threat. Armed men wearing unsettling masks burst through her door. Ash swiftly hides, using her knowledge of the environment to evade capture. She escapes into the streets, pursued by a surveillance drone that hovers ominously overhead. Relying on quick thinking and her computer's tracking capabilities, she manages to trace Oliver's location. She arrives at his hidden residence, proving she is unarmed before he reluctantly allows her entry. Inside, Ash recounts her experiences within the DU, emphasizing her belief that the simulated individuals are far more than mere programs. They are living entities, deserving of compassion and protection. She also reveals her genuine feelings for Joe, convincing Oliver to help. Oliver admits to intervening in Joe's attempted suicide, using the DU's underlying code to enhance Joe's abilities. He explains his actions were motivated by guilt over his role in creating the DU and by his belief in Joe's potential. After agreeing to assist, Oliver equips Ash with the tools necessary to re-enter the DU and reunite with Joe. However, as Ash departs, Oliver remains haunted by the weight of his decisions, knowing the danger ahead. Back in the DU, Joe wrestles with the emotional impact of Ash's revelations. The knowledge that he isn't real is almost too much to bear, but Ash reassures him, affirming his worth and the authenticity of their connection. As they share an intimate moment, Ash is abruptly pulled from the DU, leaving Joe disoriented and alone once more. Determined, Joe seeks out Oliver within the DU. Oliver explains that Hunter's patience has likely run out, and a full shutdown of the DU is imminent. Such an action would erase Joe and everyone else within this virtual world. Oliver reveals a contingency plan. Remnants of developer data have been left scattered throughout the DU, and the book Ash entrusted to Joe contains a full backup of the entire system. With urgency in his voice, Oliver provides Joe with a key and detailed instructions. Joe must locate a specific terminal, upload the data, and prepare for further instructions. However, Oliver warns Joe to exercise caution. Hunter will undoubtedly retaliate. In the real world, Ash continues her struggle for survival. She faces relentless pursuit by masked operatives, eventually engaging in a brutal fight in a dimly lit alley. Ash overcomes her attacker, extracting his weapon, but as she steps into the open, another masked figure ambushes her. The strike renders her unconscious, and she wakes to find herself restrained in Hunter's office. Hunter confronts her with mockery, accusing her of hypocrisy for interfering in the DU despite her moral objections to its existence. Ash counters with accusations of her own, condemning his disregard for the lives affected by his experiments. Their heated exchange ends with Hunter dismissing her concerns, convinced of the superiority of his vision.